Maybe there's a snake over there. Shh, no, it's a tortoise. There's a tortoise. Hello, Mr. Tortoise. Sounded like a snake. Right, so I've got the Yamaha PW-X2 motor here. Compared to the rest of the market, well, how is it? You can see here I've got a Haibike, which is actually one of the major brands that uses the Yamaha PW-X motor. Look, well, it looks pretty much the same as any other e-bike. It's got an integrated battery, and this battery is a 600 watt-hour battery. It is quite bulky, but it is Yamaha's original. Well, that means, according to the bike company's point of view, that it's actually more reliable than the custom-made battery, which some bike companies do. So it's wherever you are in the world, you can get service. So let's talk about the motor. It's 250 watts, like all the other motors out there. Nominal 250 watts. So obviously there'll be moments when it gives you more power and when it gives you less power, but the average will be always 250. And this one, as always, is limited to 25 kilometers an hour. It's 32 kilometers an hour in America, but here in Europe, 25 kilometers an hour. After 25 kilometers an hour, you're going to have to pedal yourself. Honestly, when you're going flat and downhill, that's not where you need the motor. Where you need the motor is on the ascents. Okay, on the ascents, and that's where this motor is interesting. With 80 Newton meters of torque, the motor responds really well at high cadences. It feels very responsive, it feels very powerful. It is one of the more powerful feeling motors out there. It's got 5 power modes: Eco Plus, Eco, Standard, High, Extra Power. I found that riding in the standard mode is pretty much the best mode to ride in. You don't really need to change that often because there's quite a broad range of possibilities with each power mode. Unless it gets really steep and really rocky, then it might be quite good to switch into the extra power mode. Now there's also another mode on here, which if you press and hold one of the power buttons, it switches it to automatic. Now it senses what the rider needs and what he is doing. The motor then responds accordingly. Oh shit! Oh my god! A magical stick. As a rider, I prefer to have full control myself, but if you're not particularly professional, it's a valid mode that they've included there. I would say the Bosch system is a little bit better in the dynamic response, and they've had a little bit more development time on it. The noise level on it is comparable to the Bosch system. It's not particularly noisy, it's not particularly quiet, and that's when you're actually using it. On the descents, there's no rattles, it's dead silent. Although this motor is a little bit heavier, it has been super reliable so far since I've been using it. A lot of the motor manufacturers recently have been trying to get lighter and lighter systems, and I'm not convinced that's necessarily the right way to go. I asked Haibike a while ago, I said, well, why did you use the Yamaha system? One of the big key things for it was global support and reliability. PW-X2 is a reliable system, fundamental for a big bike producer, because if you have an unreliable system and you have to deal with a huge quantity of returns, like some bike companies have had to do, motor suppliers have to be reliable. So when it comes to actual riding, uphill, downhill, all those different elements of the trail, I absolutely like how the motor feels. It feels responsive, it feels smooth, it's ready for you when you need it. It's almost a little bit too sensitive, because if you're sit there about to start, the motor sort of feels like it's ready. It's like a horse in the gates. Right, I want to talk about the controller. Now, unfortunately, all e-bike companies, especially the motor manufacturers, have, I don't know, it's 10 years down the line. I can think of about 2 companies that have controls that I like, but you won't even find those controls on every single bike and every single motor. So it's really annoying if you see a really big display. At the same time, you might be somebody who absolutely loves a big display. So there we go. I don't use or look at the speed reading on a mountain bike when I'm riding down a hill. I don't personally believe you need a big display for that information. There are some displays out there for some systems which have a smaller, reduced display. I prefer that type of system. But at the same time, when you're looking at this, it does feel like it gives you something back. For example, you can see I've done 457 kilometers on this bike. That's great. I can see that very easily. I can see the speed, I can see the battery level. All these things are great. At the same time, if you look at this display now after I've been using it for a while, it's a little bit scratched, a little bit worn, because I put the bike down, maybe I've even turned the bike upside down once or twice. In that sense, it's not ideal. The walk mode, which works really well, it's easy to access and powering it on is easy, and there's also a lights switch if you want to fit lights, which you can to this bike actually. For those people who like large displays, it's perfect. It's not the only one like that in the world. Bosch, their display is pretty big. I don't know. Yamaha hopefully will come out with different options down the line, giving people the choice, which would probably be a brilliant thing to do. When it comes to integrating this motor into the bike, its actual form factor is not too bad. Reduced enough in size that it does actually look pretty good in a bike frame. Let's talk about the range of this bike. Now, it's impossibly hard to discuss range. I weigh 90 kilos when I'm wearing my riding gear. I am fairly fit. I can ride a fairly long way. I have never run out of battery, or maybe once in the last year. That battery takes me about 1,800 meters of climbing and up to say 50 or 60 kilometers, even more, in flat distance. If you're lighter than me, you'll go further. When I look at the systems and the drain rates and all of the different things, and it's not a scientific test, I do feel that this motor is particularly efficient. It doesn't feel like to me that this battery drains particularly quickly. Whatever trickery is going on in the system, it does actually feel like it has fairly good range compared to the other systems out there. That's my perception, that's not scientifically judged. If somebody said to me, which battery or which system do you feel has the longest range for a given power, I would say probably the Yamaha system at this moment in time. So there's a brilliant motor comparison out there done by Rob Ride's EMTB. I'll put his link to his channel in the bottom there to the video he's talking about, where he compares 4 of the major motor systems on the market, and he does a very good broad outline of what they're like. And I have to say, if you're really interested and you really want to get deeper into motor systems, have a look at his video. It's really, really good. Okay, so my conclusion for this system then is, yes, I like it. I would have a bike with a Yamaha system. I'm super glad they've come out. It means that there's now going to be more competition in the component supplier market. So I just wanted to say, if you like a powerful system and you want reliability, I would really seriously consider using the Yamaha system. It's definitely a valid competitor in the market. It is one of the top systems out there, including the fact that in America, Yamaha are even producing their own bike, which will be interesting to test at some point.